Throw your hands up, throw your hands up. If you feel me what I'm saying, throw your hands up, throw your hands up, throw your hands up. If you feel me what I'm saying, throw your hands up, throw your hands up, throw your hands up. If you feel me what I'm saying.
This back says it's your boy Kid Duster, here to bring you another reactions video. Today I got to y'all Ultimate Meet the Robinson Conspiracy. I like conspiracy videos, guys. I thrive on this. I watch MatPat. I watch Pokemon conspiracy theories. So let's get into the video. I'm intrigued by this. Click what?
Meet the Robinsons is a truly phenomenal movie. After Chicken Little, this movie truly sparked Walt Disney Animation's 3D style.
Word.
Meet the Robinsons has
I saw this movie about 5
animation,
times.
but it's the convoluted story that shines the most for me. To the point of me making a theorizing tetralogy where I tried explaining every single aspect of this movie. Part 1 was on a big mystery, Part 2 was a bunch of secrets and Easter eggs, Part 3 was an explanation of the huge paradox, and Part 4 attempted to reveal the identity of Lewis's birth mother. But today I'm revising my original 3 theories and making them much better so I can explain what I truly meant. Back then I used a robotic voice because I didn't have a proper microphone, so I got a lot of negatively critical comments against the whole theory. And so, today I bring the theory back to make it all around more improved.
Well, this sounds like the music for Gravity Falls, but just remixed.
Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and my initial theory was that this entire Robinson family was lying to Lewis. My theory was that they actually knew who he was the entire time, but they eased Lewis into it and faked their reactions, all to preserve the timeline and their whole future. So where the heck is my evidence? Well, I do have a bit, so here it is. First of all, as I said last time, notice how this family risks everything for Lewis. Before Wilbur allegedly reveals that Lewis is Cornelius, the whole family acts strange around him. They risk their lives to an extraordinary amount just to save him, even though they just met him.
Yeah.
Franny especially, she talks about how Lewis is an extremely special kid. They all do, but they don't really know him. Or so we think. All he did was
why would
sit
you say
quietly
that to
at the
him
dinner
if you
table and
don't
fix
know
their
him?
peanut butter and jam machine, but that's all. But speaking of which, why did they bring out the peanut butter and jam machine? Why specifically that invention? Why not some other machine? One that Lewis wasn't already acquainted with?
Yeah.
And why did it just so happen to break on this night specifically, when Lewis was eating with them? Why is this all too familiar? Why does Uncle Joe nearly die after seeing the toast? That is not normal unless it's all a systematic method of manipulation resulting in their future's preservation. They are building up their love for him to a huge amount just to eventually crush it, leaving him wanting more, leading him to growing up and creating a family that is exactly like this one, thus saving all of their lives. They even put a ton of pressure on Lewis, using the threat of a dying man. This is testing his love and dedication for the family he just met. They even ask if he wants to be a Robinson. Lewis is extremely happy and excited, and then Wilbur does as he was told to, and knocks off his cap, just to break his heart and make him want them again. Thus, he'd go home and build their family when he grew up. Wilbur looked directly at Franny and said, "We've gotta go," implying their mutual understanding of it all. But Franny, of course, is upset that her husband is on a business trip, and she enjoys Lewis's company, though in the end they end up going through with the plan to save the future, of course. When the T-Rex came at them, they all had looks of severe distress on their faces, knowing that after it grabbed Lewis, their future was on the literal brink of abolishment if Lewis was killed. Because they wouldn't grow up to create all of it. Now, let's pick apart...
Wait a minute. If that was the case, why bring Lewis to the future? I mean, they didn't know that all this would happen. But just in case something might happen that would ultimately hurt Lewis or kill him, thus y'all whole family wouldn't exist. why would I forgot his name, but why would bring him to the future if all that was in stake? That's like risking your whole life on this one thing. That doesn't make sense to me.
Entire movie for every single piece of proof I could find. Alright, here we go. At the very end of the movie, Cornelius comes home and tells Louis that the invention he is most proud of was his memory scanner. This is significant because it's telling Louis that he needs to build their future on the scanner itself. It likely isn't Cornelius's favorite. He just wants to tell Louis that it is so that their entire future can be saved. Next point. When Louis is about to save the future, he asks Cornelius if they ever get to see his birth mom again. Cornelius stutters and tells Louis that he'll have to find out for himself. He doesn't want to risk anything. If he tells Louis that he is literally about to see his birth mom in the past, then it could throw everything off. Not only could it make Louis end up actually touching her, but it could also inform Louis that this entire future was a lie, and that they were plotting everything based off of Cornelius's claims of traveling to the future as a boy. Even when Cornelius comes home from his business trip, he wasn't very shocked to see Louis. Cornelius obviously went to the future when he was a boy. After all, that's how everybody else knew to make this plan in the first place. I bet Cornelius wasn't even on a business trip. He was probably just in some omnipotent research lab where he watched the entire whole thing play out. And then he just so happens to come home right as everything has been resolved.
But why would they plan all this?
Says, wow, he's home early. This movie has so many unexplained quotes and animated hints and points that it honestly makes zero sense.
It really
does. You actually consider my theory. Next point. At the dinner table, Franny reaches over to take off Louis's hat because Lucille asked if he has the family cowlick. Why the heck would she assume he had the family cowlick if they just met him?
Yeah.
What on earth? That makes absolutely no sense. Next point. After they save Louis, Franny starts overjoying that he's safe, and then she kisses him. Then when he calls her mom, she gets a hilariously awkward face. I mean, he is her husband after all. And Franny also wants him to spend the night. She's missing her husband. But in the end, she does indeed know that they must send him back to the past. And this proves that, well, just because of her reactions, she clearly knows something. Next, and this is more of a mini plot hole. After Louis is angry that Wilbur lied to him about going back to see his
why would he do that?
He runs away. Wilbur's family was not aware of this.
What is with this plan?
Only Cornelius was, and this is why they threatened to ground him for breaking a small piece of their plan and jeopardizing their entire future. Next, when Louis is leaving the future, they add in one final tidbit of info. Honestly, what can only be described as the epitome of their plan. Franny tells Louis that she's always right. For me, watching the movie, this was a rather unneeded, awkward scene, until of course Louis applied that to young Franny, which led to her having a crush on him, thus further preserving their future. This alone proves that if they're going to do the little things to save their future, they will almost certainly go as far as it takes to save everyone. Next, back when Louis first arrives, the family's all doing something. And I'm not just talking about the insanity at the dinner table. When Louis first comes in the house, Gaston and Millie are racing, Art is delivering pizzas, Lucille is disco dancing, Fritz and his kids are doing a ton of crazy activities including arguing, and Franny is orchestrating a symphony of frickin' frogs. It's really strange just how much they're doing. If they casually did this all day, every day for their entire lives, then they'd be out of things to do in 1 week. In my opinion, they're all putting on a show for Louis, trying to initially mesmerize him of their brilliant future. First impressions are huge, and all of the bizarre inventions totally fascinate Louis.
So they do this to preserve their future. That means this constantly goes on.
This little boy is Cornelius. Is that when they approach Franny's door, Bud winks at Louis and says, "I think you'll like her." Wow. Already they're trying to push their relationship. And when they open the door, Franny bends back and says, "Hey guys." She isn't really thrown off by a whole new person in the house, and when she says, "Hi, nice to meet you, Louis," she immediately brings him into the chaos and the crazy fun she's putting out. Oh, and another thing. How on earth would the family only recognize Louis by his hair? He has the same eye color and the same hair color. They can see. He has the same voice as when they were all younger, the same keenness for inventing. He's an orphan like Cornelius was, and he has the same name. How could any of them forget this? None of it makes sense. Next point, back to the dinner table. Franny was seemingly about to take off his hat as they felt like they'd built it up enough, but Wilbur knew better. He knew that Louis would need to be more convinced, so he launched a meatball at Gaston, starting a war. And in her mind, Franny agreed that they may need more time, and so they engaged in the unnatural theatrics.
So, when Wilbur and Carla invited private conversation about the plan is nearly inconsequential to what the family plan is. The reason they're keeping the extent a secret is because they don't want the family to know about Carla's hack.
When Louis met Carl, he kept touching and grabbing him. Carl's reactions to Louis touching and marveling over him are because, well, this is kind of funny, Carl is used to Cornelius, and to see a shrunken down version of Cornelius, it terrified him. Even later they talk about needing to fix the time stream, but they are simultaneously trying to subdue the bowler hat guy to save the time stream, as are they trying to fulfill the family's plan to convince Louis to grow up and create all of their future. Also, when they talk about fixing the time stream, they are of course referring to the family's plan as well, and how it would ultimately save their future. The time stream that is already broken, that they must fix. That's why Wilbur took him to the future after all. My final points of evidence before I wrap this up with another mind-blowing fifth-dimensional timeline are these. Here we go. Franny is constantly trying to convince Louis to create their future, yes, but she's simultaneously also trying to break him of wanting his birth mother. Remember how I said they left him wanting more? Yes, they did. They wanted him to totally focus on creating this over his birth mom. At the 58-55 mark of the movie, Franny says the following quote, "Who'd be a better family for you than us?" She's blatantly stating that she knows about his birth mom, and that the mother is nothing compared to what Franny, Bud, and Lucille would provide. And upon Wilbur allegedly revealing the truth about Louis, Franny's voice gets shaky and she gasps, but her movements are unnaturally differing from how they were in the rest of the movie. This is an animation. Disney has complete and total control of every and all frames that they animate. This is an animated movie, and this is Disney. And if you don't believe this whole theory of mine, then fine, but this is a company that goes through the trouble of animating so many little hints and Easter eggs throughout all of their movies. In Zootopia, they had all of their other films laid out as plagiarized content. In Tangled, multiple different stories of theirs can be seen on the ground and all around. Disney is a very, very detailed company that gives many of their movies hidden underlying stories. They have gone on record many times claiming this about Frozen, Tangled, all of them. Finally, the big, huge plot hole that seemingly debunks all of this. Louis says that when he grows up, he'll never invent Doris. A few years ago, this movie gave me some serious trouble trying to solve it because I wasn't very open to the concept of a parallel timeline. But every plot hole that now remains can be summed up under the fifth dimension. Because if time travel exists in this movie, then the fourth dimension exists, and therefore higher ones, meaning the multiverse. In the original timeline, Louis didn't save Goob. However, in this new timeline, Louis will come up on the baseball field. Both futures now coexist. Both real, both in the multiverse.
So, if he goes back and stops him,
Louis's travel to the future still
doesn't
happened.
that also change the timeline?
Not with Goob's intervention. And now the big point. Doris. So I lied. There was actually one other thing that was in this original timeline, and that was the DOR-15 helping hat. In the new timeline, Doris doesn't exist because of Lewis. And doesn't that violate everything I've been trying to say? No, it does not. Sure, Goob may have never gone to the past, thus never prompting Wilbur to bring Lewis to the future, but we see that Cornelius in the past, they were taken anyways, proving one thing. That if Wilbur took Lewis to the future anyways, despite no Doris, despite no Goob, that means it was always a part of the plan. No matter what, no matter of Goob, no matter of Doris, Wilbur always weakened Lewis to the future. But for what reason?
Exactly.
I can only see
if it's no threat, what would be the point of taking him?
The memory scanner. But why take him to the future? That would just implicate the problem. Well, he would learn the truth about his life and go back to the science fair, where he would soon become adopted by Lucille and Bud. This would preserve the future. This all solidly proves that it was a trip fully designed to convince Lewis to build their future, thus preserving the space-time continuum like Carl and Wilbur constantly fret about. Boom. I rest my case.
You know about that?
I know everything.
You gotta admit, this will be a great story to tell me someday. You know about that?
I know everything.
You gotta admit, this will be a great story to tell me someday. This will be a great story to tell me someday.
Wait, what? Okay, that just blowing my mind. It's if the whole plan was for them to go back, bring Lewis to the future, implement all these ideas so the family could exist. And they knew that, they probably didn't know, but if they did know that went back to try to stop him and would said all these things, it would be a risk if young Lewis died, then the whole plan would be messed up. But if they keep constantly doing it, so that means something ultimately goes wrong either way. I'm not gonna go on this for how long ever we got, but if y'all enjoyed the video, comment, like, subscribe. If y'all want more of these type of videos, comment down below. And ring the little bell to get notified of when I upload. And as always, drop the bass.
Niggas that I be with, they don't need know me. I kill niggas, bang bang, get away with murder.